Today I'm joined by Chris Gage. Chris is the CEO of Thrive Homecare, who work alongside families of older people so that everyone involved has the best possible quality of life. Chris is also the CEO of Plan with Care, a care and wellbeing company working in partnership with solicitors to support vulnerable clients. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much. I'm pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So Chris, look, tell us a little bit more about Thrive Home Care and also Plan with Care as well.
Yeah, so Thrive Home Care supports older people generally in their own homes to have the best possible quality of life. And that's the heart of it. And we looked at the care sector in general and people's expectations of older age. And there's a lot of people that are coping, getting by, satisfied with what, to my mind, is not what I'd want for myself. It's not what I want for my parents. The number of families we talk to who say, we're coping, it's all right, we don't need any help at the moment. So I'm like, you've got somewhere between 6 months and 10 years left together. Do you want to spend it coping? Because I know I wouldn't. And that's really what we've stepped into. It's well-being, quality of life first company that has a care component to what we do, because we recognize that for some people, in order to have the best possible quality of life, you need to have those care needs supported. But that's not the heart of the business. It's just part of what the business delivers. Fundamentally, what we deliver is joy and connection and doing the things that give you pleasure, and that might be Greek philosophy, or it might be going to the seaside, or might be the theatre or flowers, or it might be just sensory stimulation if you're at late stages of dementia, or something like that. Then it might be much more simple. It might be being in that room and just giving the sensation of rain on your face again, and with gentle hand touch and all of those kind of things. And so kind of really end to end, meeting people where they are with the needs that they've got. And as you mentioned, we've got Plan with Care, which was really the starting point for all of this. So they're actually the same legal entity with two different trading types. Plan with Care was the starting point, which is care and wellbeing consultancy for vulnerable people generally, or you might say people at risk. And that kind of very much came from the same place, that lots and lots of people are languishing for no good reason. There are plenty of people who are languishing and suffering for good reasons. The resources aren't there, but there are many people for whom there's unnecessary suffering, and there's potential that's not being released in people because they don't have the right support for enough of the time with the right amount of expertise around them, and that's what we kind of set out to do. We did that. We set up about 7 years ago. Been working across Kent and into London and East and West Sussex, primarily with solicitors, and they obviously work a lot with older people, particularly their private clients and vulnerable departments. And we've kind of really established a way of working that makes a massive difference to older people, and so it's kind of all progressed from there. And Thrive, we launched a couple of months ago as kind of very much public facing brand, for people to connect with and really kind of get what we do, because no one's coming to Plan with Care for a care need.
You've got two. Well, how I've interpreted that is you've got sort of two different target markets, and you've got a brand for each to target that particular market. So that
Exactly.
That makes absolute sense. And look, thank you for sharing that background, and also like I'm a big supporter of the care industry. I think it does a great job. So thank you for what you and your team sort of provide as well. So look, let's go back, because you started playing with care roughly about sort of 7 years ago. Why did you decide to become a business owner? Was it something that you always wanted to do, when you were at school or university, whatever, you went, well, I'm ultimately going to be a business owner? Or was there something else that
No, no, not at all. I mean, I didn't even really get my head properly around uh, what that was until my mid 20s, I don't think. My background was in theatre, and through that we set up companies in order to have an entity to pay people and to get funding through. But it was never a business in that in the kind of conventional sense of the word. I remember we went, must have been 19 or something. We went to the Prince's Trust. I think, was it the Prince's Trust? Yeah, or it might have been our bank, or maybe we had both those meetings. I don't know. Um, and they were like just asking us normal business questions, like who are your customers, where's your revenue coming from, and stuff. And we're like, our entire business plan is to get arts funding. That
Yeah.
was literally it. And they're like, they did not know what to do with us because it didn't fit. And obviously, ultimately, if you want to do something in the world, then you've got the revenues have to be there and have to balance out what you're doing. And without telling the very long story, I ended up running a small arts charity by mistake. Really, I was their second employee, and after a few months, realised that I was the succession plan for the founder, and no one had mentioned that at any point to then. Um, and so kind of came to came to understand what it was to run an organization. And kind of in my mid 20s, came to understand what social enterprise was. And I sort of and that was 20 years ago, and it was not, entrepreneurship was not a word that people were talking about in the same way, and social enterprise certainly wasn't. Um, so that organization I actually stayed with for the better part of 20 years, and we transitioned from being a charity into a community interest company, um, and we're working um, to affect change within the care sector. Doing a lot of work around leadership, around culture, around creativity, in order to create the kind of environments where people could actually live well and flourish. And uh, it was, as you well know, it's challenging to support others to change their organizations, um, and particularly being someone who was supporting care providers whilst never actually being a provider myself. Um, uh, and so, yeah, I was about to then transition to the founding story for Plan with Care, but I realise I've well answered your question.
Oh, no, thank you for that. So I'm always intrigued to find out, the reasons that people went into business and what their story was, because it's always very different. Some people were, yeah, it was always for them. Some people got made redundant, started up a business. Some people just fell into it, whatever it may be. So thank you for sharing that. And look, let's so okay, so over, you've had sort of Plan with Care for about 7 years. Over the last few months, you've created that sort of Thrive as that sort of marketing entity direct to the public. What's been the biggest challenge that you've faced being a business owner?
Um, Not quite sure. I don't. Yeah, interesting one. And one that comes to mind is finding the right people.
Okay.
Always. Yeah. And it's something I actually think we're exceptionally good at, which is why it's perhaps a bit of a ducking question to what's the biggest challenge. But finding your way to to the kind of people that share the values, that genuinely connect with the mission of what we're doing, and have the skills to execute on it
Yeah.
is to my mind the most important challenge that I address as the leader of the business.
And it's, by the way, it's great that you've said actually you're particularly good at that, because you're right, it's a big challenge for a lot of businesses out there, finding the right people, retaining the right people, obviously, as well. And as you quite neatly said, actually one of the important things there is somebody that shares the same values and as your organisation. So how did you overcome that? Once you realised that actually that is a challenge to find the right people, how did you overcome it?
Um, I'm the I I think there are a few things. One, we really look to live what we're espousing. Um that there's a lot of congruence, I think, between what we say and what we do and how we behave to each other. Um, I put an enormous amount of time and energy into the people around us, fundamentally, like to the arguably to kind of the detriment of business growth and those kind of things. Like I think a lot of people in my situation would be spending much more time on business development and marketing and going out and shouting about what we're doing. And I kind of will spend as much time as is needed with the team um, on whatever's happening within the business, I guess. Um, Being very explicit about our values, making sure that when we put out our adverts, because into the mess that is Indeed and LinkedIn and all of that, that we're we're really paying attention to telling the story and bringing it to life. So when we recruit, um, we call them associates rather than carers, because uh, no one wants to say, "Oh, here's my carer." It's uh, it's much more comfortable to say, "Here's my associate," or "Here's my companion." Um, uh, but when we do that, we tell a story about an individual that they're actually going to be supporting, and we bring that person to life, and how they're going to be, that the person coming into that role is actually going to help them live their lives to the full. Whether
And like, I think actually I'm going to be very particular here, because I'm going to change one of the words that you were using in that, because you were saying you spend time with your team.
Mhm.
Change that to invest time with your team.
Yeah, 100%.
Because investing time with your team means you are going to get a return on investment for that time that you spend. If you spend time, generally you don't get that, you don't get anything back.
Yeah, yeah,
And
good point.
actually, when I think by you investing time in your team, which is what you're doing, you get a return on investment. I also, I like the bit that you sort of said there about actually making sure that when you're advertising for staff and for the team, that you get the advert right to attract the right people. And it reminds me of Ernest Shackleton, um, who wanted to recruit people to to achieve his bold vision of the first trans Antarctic crossing. Okay, and this was the advert that he put out there. Men wanted for hazardous journey, low wages, bitter cold, long hours of complete darkness, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in event of success. Now I think, and that to me is a really honest
Yeah,
advert for people. But what it also meant is he got the right people.
right. Yeah,
He
yeah.
got people that when actually, yes, we get that this is going to be tough and cold and bitter, but actually, if we succeed, it's going to be a great success. So he got the right people, and I think that to me, that's what that reminded of. I was reminded of when you said about actually being honest and attracting the right people.
Yeah, completely. And I think it's that thing of being what you want to have in the world, essentially, and then people find you. And that's that's part of the reason, that we've called it Thrive, because that if that's of interest to you, you see a care company that's calling itself Thrive, you're at least gonna go, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna take a look at that.
Yeah, right. And look, so you mentioned, well, okay, that's something that a challenge that you face, which I think can resonate with a lot of people watching and listening to this. If you could wave a magic wand and solve one challenge in your business right now,
Hmm.
what would that be?
It would be to have the market understand what's possible
Okay.
with a care and support service, but really what's possible in older age, because there are literally hundreds of thousands of older people out there who are lonely, isolated, not living their lives to the full. Um,
But that's the
and
point. That's the point that you mentioned about, a lot of people just accept I'm old. This is what life is going to be like now.
yeah,
And you want to change that market perception of doesn't have to be like that.
right, exactly. Because what you see as standard is people start getting old, they start getting a little bit frail. They're kind of gently going downhill. Kids are worried about them. Kids are starting to become project managers. They're starting to become carers. They're stressed. They've got their own lives going on. Um, and that's the like we're coping phase.
Yeah.
And then a crisis often happens. Now maybe there's a quick deterioration. Maybe they have a fall, and from there it's often into hospital. If they're lucky enough to get out of hospital, it's often into a care home, and life expectancy in a care home is less than 3 years, and about 18 months in nursing. And people generally accept that that's what happens.
Mm.
And our experience is that it really doesn't need to be like that at all. That if at that point where this decline starts to happen a little bit, um, you can put in place really good quality relationships that provide meaning and purpose and enter into that person's world and do the things that really connect with them and light them up, then that decline is much lower. The family is much more resilient because they're not the ones doing everything. They're not doing all the project management. They're not managing everything. And um, people can just stay at home, frankly, to the end of their lives with the right support, and we can step that up a little bit as and when it's needed. But in the vast majority of cases, it can actually stay at a very low level, which is a fraction of the cost of care homes, for an extended period of time. And yeah, if I that's my magic wand to get
Lovely.
that message out to society as a whole.
Well, hopefully that you just sort of saying that on this is helps that journey. I'm sure there's
Yeah,
other
thank
things
you.
that you're doing, but yeah, look, hopefully people watching this and listening to it will understand that as well and contribute to that. So look, Chris, there's one question I always like to ask everybody that's kind enough to join me on this discussion, and that's this: what is the best advice that you would give to an 18-year-old you? So if you could go back and speak to yourself when you're 18, what would you say
Yeah.
to yourself?
Um, do what gives you energy.
So, and when you say energy, what something that motivates you, something that gets you
Yeah,
up in the morning?
yeah, that thing, do the thing that you love, the thing that you're like excited and passionate to do in the world, because that is fundamentally what the world needs is more passionate, joyful people. Um, and everything else will work itself out if you do that.
Great advice. I like that, and I love. And by the way, I think I mentioned this before. When I started doing this, my daughter was 18, hence why I asked that question. She's actually 19 now, but I love passing these bits of advice on to her, and hopefully some of them will sort of resonate and help her become the person that she wants to be as well. So I'll certainly be passing that on.
Please do.
So, Chris, look, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today and sharing more about your businesses, but also your journey as well. So, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Simon. It's been a real pleasure.